Hello, Internet! Gino, that Pinguino Grieco here again with another episode of Deep Listens. All aboard the Paine train! And I am joined, as always, by my co-conductor, Chris, ZombiePie Redacted.
What did they do?
They did a bad thing.
What did they do?
Chugga, 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 chugga.
What did they do?
You hear it coming.
What did they do?
They made a game, a video game, for the PlayStation 2, and they released it, and the world was made better? Worse? It changed. It changed. We can say it changed. Final Fantasy X-2 is what we are going to be discussing. And when I say Paine Train, Paine is spelled with an E. Are you happy? You've started playing Final Fantasy X-2. I finished it. But before we get to the Paine Train, I feel like we should...
spelled Paine.
Yes. That is the pun. So before we get to Final Fantasy X-2, I feel like we've got a couple of things to handle.
We've got unfinished business to take to.
I have a question. Should we first send off Final Fantasy X, or should we take questions first? I'll let you decide.
We should talk about why we need to send off Final Fantasy X properly.
Because it deserves better. Because it deserves better than what it got. Because
it deserves...
X-2, it followed it, but it did not send it off. It did not homage to what came before. It mostly torches everything, says, fuck you, got mine, and then runs off with your money.
Give me my money. Give that man his money.
Yes. Give me my fucking money.
So, someone pointed out that we forgot something very important at the end of the Final Fantasy X podcast.
Yeah. So with Final Fantasy VIII, so this was, to be fair, we did not do this at the end of the Final Fantasy VIII podcasts. We did
8,
it...
7, 9, or 10.
No, we did it when we had played 8. You had played 8 for a second time over the...
You had played it for, like, the 100th millionth time.
Yes, for the Community Endurance Run, you played it. And so we did a follow-up episode just to catch back up emotionally with you having played the game for a second time. And we sent it off by singing a lovely song called Eyes on Me. And they said, since then, we've done the Final Fantasy X series, and someone said, hey, why didn't you sing Suteki Dane like you did Eyes on Me? And there are a couple answers. There's a couple reasons for that. One, we didn't think of it at the time. Two, it's in Japanese. And I speak Japanese, but you don't. And I've heard this song a lot. You have not. And so
I don't know it by heart.
Yeah.
Unlike you.
I know most of it, but not enough. 3, I feel like us singing in Japanese will probably end poorly for everyone involved.
Everyone.
No one will like it. No one will like what happens. So we've decided on a compromise. Why don't you tell them what we've decided on?
The compromise is we're going to sing the English translation in the form of a beat poem.
All right. So without further ado, Final Fantasy X, We Hardly Knew Ye.
My heart was swimming in words gathered by the wind. My voice bounded into a clouded carried tomorrow.
Moon's tender light through the dark gently weave, calm in the night, cold like the sea. Stars slowly fall from the sky to my dreams. Tears overflow in loneliness.
I think we have 2 different translations of this song. This is going to be great.
Perfect.
Isn't it beautiful if we could walk hand in hand? I'd want to go to your town, your home, in your arms. I'd dream of being against your chest. My body in your keeping, disappearing into the evening.
Heart ever still like the wind as it fades, words but a lie kind, all the same, voice ever sure as it rings through the sky, brilliantly sound in harmony.
Isn't it beautiful if we could walk hand in hand? I'd want to go to your town, your home, in your arms. My dream of your face that I softly touch melts in the morning.
I think I can't do it. I think that's where it ends for me, so I don't know.
Oh. Okay, there we go. That's our rendition of Suteki Dane.
In English.
I don't seem to recall you singing Simple But Cool while you did your Kingdom Hearts podcast, so this is a horrible tradition that I completely approve of.
Yeah, we didn't sing Simple and Clean, though I can do that too. That garbage song.
No.
Yeah, it's for the best that we didn't do that. We still, I guess, need to go back and revisit Final Fantasy IX at some point, because that... what is the name? Melodies of Life. Melodies of Life's a good song. It's fine.
Melodies of Life is, of all the songs that we have subjected ourselves in a Final Fantasy game, Melodies of Life is probably the best?
It's the most reasonable. I feel like its translation works in English. The words make sense. It's a low bar, but, you know. And
it applies to what happens in the game.
Yeah,
it
applies.
Just something that comes out of nowhere and it's like, this is some garbage.
Yeah, and it applies to what's happening in the game, but also is just generic enough that you don't have to have played the game. Unlike Final Fantasy VIII, where it's like it's the main character. It's like two people singing to each other. But this is fine. We're gonna do this, I think, more. Maybe next time we'll know the words to the songs. We're not going to be singing the intro song to Final Fantasy X-2. Thank God. I refuse.
Maybe we should.
No.
No.
So without further ado, thank you. Thank you for whoever reminded us to do that. There you go. We tried. So, now it's time for feedback. We have a lot of it.
We have so much.
So... before we get to the feedback, let me
I'll be on topic this time as well. Nothing about basketball, baseball, or any off-topic stuff.
Though
still a low bar. Still a low bar in terms of, like, reading your emails, but...
Though, just so you know, FYI, in the next Persona podcast, we have the exciting conclusion to who NJ fan was. Who Nets fan for life.
You guys found out?
I know who he is now.
Really?
Yes.
Are you lying, or is it in the game?
I'm not lying. I'm not lying. We got an email from this person, and they unmasked themselves willingly. They said, I like the New Jersey Nets. Yeah.
I have to see this.
Yeah. Yeah, so tune in. That's a plug right there. So if you want to be someone who is mentioned in hushed tones, you can go ahead and hit us up at DeepListensPod on Twitter or at ThatPinguino on Twitter. DeepListens.libsyn.com. You can leave comments in our comment section, or deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. And if you do one of those things, you could sound something like this. Here we have from Austin in our comments on the last Final Fantasy X episode. He says, "Dear God, please don't play Final Fantasy X-2 all the way through as a plus 100% game. It sounds like Final Fantasy X resonated with Chris in a way he was not anticipating, and that's great, even though I don't share his same opinion. Final Fantasy X-2 is a shameless cash grab when Square was in a bind for money. I guess my question to Gino is whether or not he counts Final Fantasy X-2 as a proper entry in the main Final Fantasy franchise, or does it reasonably qualify as a spin-off like Dirge of Cerberus or Revenant Wings?" I think it's a mainline game.
Yeah, it's a mainline game. He's already answered his question, because when you look at Final Fantasy X-2, it's an RPG. Dirge of Cerberus is a shitty first-person shooter.
Third-person shooter. Whatever you want.
Revenant Wings is a tower defense game, and like the mobile games are tap 'em and get your rewards, pellet simulators.
Yep. Final Fantasy X-2
isn't.
It's totally a mainline. It's totally a mainline role-playing game. You can see its lineage in 13, as terrible as. I don't know why. I don't know why they chose quite possibly one of the worst games they ever made as the model for what their franchise should be going forward. But maybe this was the warning that we all needed.
What was the first part of the question? Don't 100% the game?
Yeah, just don't do it.
What did I say on Steam to you, Gino? If I had a choice between slamming a screen door on my genitals and 100%ing Final Fantasy X-2, I'd really have to stop and think about it.
And if I remember correctly, my reply was, at least the genital pain would be over quickly. Whereas 100%ing Final Fantasy X-2 will suck away multiple days of your finite existence on this earth. And so I think the genital pain is preferable.
So everyone I've talked to about this has told me that it basically requires you to play New Game Plus for Final Fantasy X-2 to get the true ending. Is this true, or is it possible to play it in one go-through?
I believe my guidebook said you can beat it 100% if you pick a certain faction when you get a choice of factions, and then do everything, like do actually 100% everything. But you it means you have to make certain choices the entire game, and if you don't, you can't 100% it. But just don't do it. Just don't. It's not worth it. It's a bad game. You know what that cutscene is at the end? It's bad. Everything's bad. Just don't. So, next bit of feedback. JD says, I 100% agree on the Final Fantasy rankings thus far. Final Fantasy IX is drastically underrated. Also, worth noting, if you say nice things about Final Fantasy IX, we will read your comments.
So what was the controversy with our ranking? We ranked 10 above 7, right?
There was no controversy, I don't think. Maybe someone in one of your blog comments took umbrage with that, but no one I've talked to has taken umbrage with that, because most rational people can see that Final Fantasy X is a better game than Final Fantasy VII.
Although 7 is probably the most important game made in the PlayStation 1 era.
Yeah, it's
probably.
It's super important. I just don't think it's as good. That's fine. Patrick Wong, you didn't sing the lyrics of Suteki at the end of the podcast. You'd better sing Real Emotion, or I will never listen to another episode of your podcast.
Looks like we lost the listener.
Well, we'll see. Well, Real Emotion is not... Is that the song at the beginning of Final Fantasy X too?
I think that's the beginning of this. Yeah, that's the beginning
song. Is that the What Can I Do For You?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not going to sing that. Don't even joke.
I'm not.
No bullshit.
P.S. Why is Zombie always a month behind for his blog versions of the Final Fantasy podcast?
They're like 1,500 word long blog. They're stupid. They're 8,000 words on average. Give me a break. They take a month to I'm in the process of editing it, and that takes me at least a week to edit it so as that it's not full of grammar errors and syntax errors. Yeah.
Recording a podcast takes a few hours. Writing something takes far longer. And what you write is
dumb.
It's a craft. There's craft there. You're welcome for the craft.
So it's generally speaking, I play the game like in spurts of twice a month. Then it's a solid weekend, a solid 2 days of me just locking myself in my apartment and spending an entire weekend writing. And then the next weekend will be the editing phase, where I spend the next 2 days just editing, proofreading, rewriting, revising. These blogs are hard. If I could just do the podcast, I would, but I can't, because and it got to the stage to where I was just writing way too much, and they were difficult to read. And
I told you to throttle that back.
Yeah, so they were originally 15,000 words per blog, and now they're down to about 7.
It's more doable.
Which is more doable. It's still too much. It's still way too much. I mean, when we were doing the Final Fantasy VII series, there were days where it's like, I don't want to do this anymore because it's just taking too much out of me.
So during my freelance time, I've never been given a word count above 2,000. Or like my goal has never been...
What am I doing?
Yeah.
What am I doing?
If I broke 2,000, it was always like a extreme, it was very close.
A short blog for me was like the Mario Party blog that I wrote, and that was like 5,000.
Yeah.
Why I love Mario Party 8.
Yeah. I aspire to keep everything in the 1,000 to 2,000 range.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, I need to get things out of me. So, PSS, Gino, what if you punished your co-host when they forget to do their podcast homework or forgot to be on time for the podcast by having them play a visual novel with ZP and forcing them to record a 20-minute podcast?
Yes!
That seems like it would help with your production issues. You know, that's a great idea, and I'd like to make a little live suggestion here. I missed a podcast recently, and I've been a bad boy. Which means, ZP, what visual novel?
To think about it because I want to show you a good representation of the medium and why I actually like visual novels.
Thank God, because I expected you to just say, "Oh, we're playing Necopara Volume 2 again." And I was like, "No."
Again? I have
well,
to play
for you
it
would be again. For you it would be again. For me it would be a first time. But no.
Oh man, I got to write about Necopara at some point. I don't know how to write a blog about Necopara without like being exiled from Giant Bomb for life.
I don't know. So, next bit of feedback.
Necopara 2 is bad. Surprise, surprise.
Fair enough.
I got all the achievements. I S-ranked that game. And much like Necopara Volume 1 and 0, the Steam cards for this are ridiculously expensive. It's like 50 cents per card because...
What?
Perverts!
What?
Yeah.
I have, like, Steam trading card packs that go for less than that. Damn it, perverts. Why don't you pay for my Jotun cards?
Girls.
They do like cat girls a whole lot. So, next piece of feedback from Recky Wills.
Hey, Recky.
Does the Giant Bomb staff know that ZombiePie, one of their esteemed moderators, holds these views of Mario Party 3? So to catch people up, Mario Party 3 is one of your top 10 games ever, and it currently outranks Final Fantasy X.
10 and 9.
Yeah.
And I would probably say Mario Party 3 is my most played Nintendo 64 game.
And so let me just check.
Either that or Rogue Squadron.
The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time came out for the N64, right? That's correct?
I never played it.
Super Mario 64 came out for the N64, is that correct?
I only played it one weekend because I borrowed it from my stepbrother.
Super Smash Brothers came out for the Nintendo 64, correct?
I have played more Mario Party than Super Smash Bros.
Mario Kart came out for the Nintendo 64, is that correct?
That might be close. So it'd probably be Mario Party in terms of most hours played, and then Mario Kart, and then Rogue Squadron, and then Smash below Rogue Squadron.
I feel like you goofed. So no one on the staff knows.
Rogue Squadron is a good game.
I guess Rory might know this.
What?
That you like Mario Party 3 a whole lot. But I don't think anyone else on the staff knows of your...
If we're talking about moderators, the things that consistently discuss the other moderators aren't... It's not my video game tastes and preferences, it's my food tastes and preferences. That usually draws the greatest number of groans.
Well, yeah, because we don't want to hear about it, and then you'll show up and be like, hey, I made spaghetti with a strainer the wrong way. Help! I tried to make tea with a microwave.
I still make tea from a microwave.
That wasn't the hard part. It was the part where you didn't know that leaves expand when you get them wet.
Yeah, I did loose leaf tea for the first time, and I thought you just put the tea leaves in the cup and then fill it with water and put it in the microwave.
I don't think it's called loose leaf tea. I don't think it's like a loose leaf binder.
And you are an Italian American.
That's accurate.
You are very much supportive of my salsa marinara sauce.
What is this again?
The salsa marinara sauce is pico de gallo with a little bit of sugar blended, and then I serve it on pasta, calling it marinara sauce.
No, it's not. No.
It's really good. You just need to cook it down.
That's fine. That's not marinara sauce.
You sprinkle a little sugar in it, and then it tastes like basically marinara sauce.
Just because there's tomatoes involved doesn't mean it's marinara sauce.
Onions, and peppers. That's basically marinara sauce.
You're in the ballpark, but throw some basil up in that thing.
You wouldn't put basil in salsa, so it's salsa marinara.
Nope.
And then you just grate some cheddar cheese.
Why sugar?
On top of that. Because pasta marinara sauce is sweet. I don't know about you, but I find it sweet.
Do you know where the sweetness comes from?
Ketchup.
No, it comes from tomatoes.
That's what I also put in if I need to thicken it a little bit. And I know that it's sacrilege. This I know is sacrilege, but I do like to eat my pasta dishes with cheddar cheese.
That, whatever, I get. You know, at this point, fine. You should use Parmesan, but that's fine. In a few weeks, I'm going to make several 100 pounds of tomato sauce from scratch.
So what is in the legitimate Italian pasta sauce?
Tomatoes, basil,
onion,
maybe onion,
peppers,
salt, pepper. That's all you need. You don't even need peppers. All we put is basil, tomatoes, salt, pepper.
And if you want to make it a little sweeter, you put in a little ketchup.
Yes. No. I thought you were going to say onions. Sometimes you put in onions, but I tend to put in onions when I'm cooking it, not when I'm jarring it. You know what? I'm going to send you one of these jars of tomato sauce to learn you something. We're going to educate you. Just like, remember that time when I was going to send you a PlayStation 1?
Italian-American, your conversations that you have with me about pizza, you're totally supportive of my pizza rankings.
We're not going down two different food holes this episode. We've got too many things to discuss.
Papa Murphy's is the best pizza in the United States.
No, it's
there
not.
I said it.
Nope.
Bacon artichoke deluxe. And even though you're the East Coast, brothers, the West Coast, we put barbecue sauce and ham and pineapple on our pizzas. It's good in the hood.
I've had those types of pizzas before. I'm fine with a barbecue pizza. The problem is I'm a vegetarian, and that means that most barbecue pizzas do not have anything else for me. Then you've just slathered barbecue sauce on bread.
Pineapple.
And maybe there's cheese. Pineapple is not... I don't love pineapple on a pizza. I don't get upset about pineapple on a pizza, but it's not my cup of pizza.
Bacon bits.
So, we have an email...
You should have seen his face when I described salsa marinara.
What an email it is.
I wish they could have seen your face.
It wasn't a great face. It wasn't a happy face, I'll say that much. We have an email from David, and he's really achieved something here, because he sent our first email that came with an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to go ahead and... I'm going to read from that at the end.
His email?
So, let me read it. Dear Gino and Chris, feel free to skim this. I hope you two are well and your laptop is recovered, ZP. I've been listening to the Deep Listens podcast sporadically for the last couple of months and especially enjoy your Final Fantasy series, which I got attached to along with ZP's Final Fantasy X blog. Thanks again for streaming both the Final Fantasy X-2 and Community Endurance runs. Anyway, here's a late email spurred on from my love of FF10. Still working on a bunch of other things, but I thought I'd send this feedback on Yojimbo first, since it took a while to put together, and I finished it unlike other parts. So we have other Final Fantasy X feedback on the way. Chris erroneously argued, when talking about Yojimbo's most powerful attacks, especially Zanmato, that you have to earn that over time. These are in quotes, by the way. You could give him 1,000,000 gil, and he will still throw stars if it's your first time using him. This does not give the PAL, International, and HD versions enough credit.
Are you goddamn kidding me?
NTSC and Japanese original were more unforgiving. That's to be fair. I've attached an Excel sheet and PDF if you prefer, calculating the percentage chance of Zanmato in the HD version using his starting compatibility. I've assumed the best negotiation option to defeat the most powerful enemies chosen while obtaining him. Too long didn't read. Key things to learn. Against bosses, if you summon Yojimbo with Overdrive, i.e. Yuna's Overdrive, 2,048 gil is enough for a 50% chance of Zanmato. Giving 1,000,000, as Chris suggested, would give you a 70% chance. Plus, you'll waste 475,712 gil. So it's definitely reasonable to not train Yojimbo and still take out super bosses with few resets. This means essentially obtaining a weapon with First Strike, and then switching to Yojimbo, which allows you to obliterate any enemy in the game, well, almost any of them. Fittingly, the one that gives you the most trouble is Dark Yojimbo, who you must fight 4 times in a row without saving. Nevertheless, give Yojimbo a try sometimes, especially to see the cool stuff behind the Dark Aeons. I'll get back to that other email on the ending and the mythology of the game now. Quick teaser. I believe the story is the way it is to fit the Yamada no Orochi structural narrative. Plus, Dream Zanarkand is not within Sin. It's the Faith's dream embodied by the Great Sea and Water Orb, first seen when Titus learns his fate. Also, the Pyroflies are key to everything. Your best.
Yeah,
all the best. David. Dick Zavid. P.S. Enjoy the lovable insanity of Final Fantasy X too.
Oh, God damn it, Dick Zavid. Someone else also pointed out that Dream Zanarkand is not in Sin. It's like a floating island city thing. Something I forgot to bring up. If Sin is sworn to protect Dream Zanarkand, why is the first scene of the game him just destroying the fucking city he's promised to protect?
He's not trying to protect it, he's making it.
So he's going to make it by destroying it.
No. Sin's Yu Yevon, which is in Sin, is summoning
Mr. Bugman.
Yeah, the little Bugman is summoning the Dream Zanarkand. Sin is another thing that he is summoning. They are two separate things that are both summoned by Yu Yevon, and Sin is destroying Dream Zanarkand because that is Jecht, and Jecht has some sort of agency. Okay. We're not going into now without... If you...
I'll write about it. I'll ask the questions on the blog that's coming up this week. And
though this spreadsheet has variables and they're defined. And he's got the formulas. Oh my goodness. And a chart.
Okay, the next blog that goes up, I want you to post this.
Yeah, the source is from Game FAQs. So
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. If you want to get in touch with the show, do so at DeepListensPod on Twitter or at ThatPinguino, deeplistens.libsyn.com. You can hit up the comment sections or deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. So, without further ado, all aboard the Paine train. Choo-choo!
And it is in business.
So,
business is booming, as they say on the Paine train. Boy!
We streamed out the beginning of Final Fantasy X-2, and so if you didn't catch that stream, I believe it's on your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You archived it. What did you think, now that you've had some time to process the beginning of Final Fantasy X-2? It begins, with such a bang. There's a concert, and Yuna's a pop star, and everything is
God,
crazy.
Is this game just a complete betrayal of all the goodwill you have for Final Fantasy X, and just all the goodwill you have for Final Fantasy in general? Just they take it and then they just are like, so you like this game? Well, we're going to graft all of the things that we've heard are really popular right now on this game that you love, with no semblance of tact or decency or context. I'm just going to graft this bubblegum pop designed by and written by in committee game and graft it onto this game that you love.
But it's worth also mentioning that it's not just things that are really popular right now. It's things that were very popular in Japan.
Yep.
In the early to mid 2000s. So this game is hyper specific, and you can tell because it starts with a J-pop concert with a J-pop song and a bunch of
Somehow this game is
ladies.
even more distinctly Japanese than Final Fantasy X.
Yeah.
Did you notice that at points in the battle, Yuna and Riku will speak Japanese?
Yeah.
They'll say phrases and words in Japanese to each other.
So that is mostly when you're using some of the dress spheres that are distinctly Japanese, like the Festivalist, or some of the later ones that are definitely Japanese-inspired, like Samurai. But otherwise, they don't necessarily always speak Japanese.
It's such a weird thing, and I really want to hate it, and I think I do.
I hate parts of it a whole lot, but I can't hate all of it.
I can't hate all of it, and that's what's really tripping me up, is I see the silver lining to this game, and I see some quaint ideas which really work, and there are scenes in this game that honestly do work. But the parts that are just this corporate crafted bundle so as that it can appeal to as many people as possible and make Square a quick buck, as one of our listeners said, that's the worst part about it. So that's really what I find frustrating. I know that there are people who like Final Fantasy X too, but I think that, like, as someone who really liked 10 and playing Final Fantasy X too, this is very literally a broken franchise with no connectivity between the games in terms of thematics and art design or even just characterization. Like, it is a broken franchise. Like, 10 is so disparate from 10-2 that really it's not a functioning series. In terms of this being a follow-up to 10, it fails in that regard. And maybe you do like 10 too, but I find it very tough to believe that you would like 10 if you liked 10 too, or if you like. You only can really like one or the other.
You really have to be down with Yuna, like the characters of Yuna and Riku. You have to be really down with the world, but you also have to be really open-minded about the tone. Like, you have to be down for a game that is incredibly melodramatic and somber, and then also a game that is Charlie's Angels but Final Fantasy at the same time. And I feel like the developers of this game, they had a bar chart, they had two axes when they were thinking about this game. On one axis, it said appeal to as many people as possible, and on the other axis, it said cost. And
yeah.
And cost never went up. Cost was fixed. They're like, we have X amount of dollars. What can we do? And then when they asked, some developer said, well, I don't know. Maybe we could make a bunch of mini-games? And we could make like a loose combat system? Sound good? How much are we going to test it? Like, not a lot. What if it's buggy as hell? Or feels buggy and janky in a weird way? Sounds great. But we need another mechanic. What about jumping? Yeah, jumping. That'll do it. And so you end up with this mess. And the mess begins at a concert where you're introduced to YRP.
Yeah. And movies has a similar thing. It's called the triangle of truth. When you're making a movie, you have three things that you basically use to determine how you make your movie. It's cost, length of production, and quality. And you can't have both of the corners. And unless you are one of the greatest directors in the world, you can never get into the center. But once you compromise one of your ideals, the other two increase or get better for you. So if you compromise quality, you're going to be in a situation where the cost of the production will go down, as well as the amount of time on the production will go down. But if you increase the amount of time that you spend, the cost will go up, but possibly the quality will go up.
Yep. This game is not good.
Just, I know we discussed it on the live stream, but I'm trying to kind of wrap my mind around where Square Enix was when they were making Final Fantasy X-2. So let me basically go through what I said on the live stream, and then you can correct me as I say this. So Square Enix decided to make a movie, and they failed horribly.
Yes.
And they were like 100 million plus in the hole as a result.
Mm-hmm.
They were on the verge of bankruptcy. So they had a two-part plan. Part one, buy our leading competition who is financially solvent, and then have their profits counteract our losses.
Yep.
Part two, let's make a sequel to a game that was really popular and give people working on this project like 6 months to make it. And then just churn it out. That's basically it, right?
Pretty much.
Square needed a game to make up for the fact that they failed at making movies, and also they had to buy their leading competition to bail them out in their darkest period. Financially, their darkest period.
That's the long and the short of it, though. Final Fantasy X and Kingdom Hearts kind of were what allowed the merger to even happen, and then they merged, but they still needed. So, on top of what's going on in, the overall financial situation with Square, you also have to consider that this is right about the moment where
the bubble popped in Japan financially.
No, when the PS2 is right around the moment where Square's obsessive need for graphical fidelity and cutscene fidelity bumped up against what systems could accomplish realistically. Okay. And by that I mean, in the PS1 era, you could make things that were cutting edge, quote unquote, graphically, in a a decently quick turnaround if you threw enough people at it. Like you didn't need to make that many assets. You would make a few rooms in some, high-end software. You would take some shots of them, some still shots. You'd make some pre-rendered backgrounds out of those things. You'd make a handful of polygonal models, some animations, and then you'd be good. With the advent of 3D that came in the Final Fantasy X and X-2 era, all of a sudden the cost of making an individual asset and the number of assets you have to make goes way up. Final Fantasy X is kind of a hodgepodge. It's a median between the PS1 era and Final Fantasy XII. It actually has some pre-rendered backgrounds that kind of draw on that old way of developing Final Fantasy games, but it also has a lot more full polygonal environments that you're running around in. 10.2, in order to turn around a game in between 10 and 12, and 10 and 11, like 11 came out in between there as well, but that was, a whole other team because that was their online MMO team. They needed to find a way to make a game without making a whole batch of new assets, because turning that around it was not possible, I don't think. And so they made a game that reused a bunch of assets and reused a bunch of characters and reused a bunch of everything. And I think the 10.2 experience is basically, it then repeated itself in the PS3 era with the 13 series, where you get 13, 13.2, 13.3, because creating a single Final Fantasy game, just the cost of making those assets is so baked into the experience that they can't afford to make a whole new game's worth of assets. They can do it once per generation now. Whereas, try to think about 7, 8, 9 came out in a 4-year span.
Yeah.
And then you got 10, waited a couple years, 10.2, waited a couple more years, 12, and then 11 comes out in between. But 11's kind of a whole other weird thing. The pace of their development just slowed to a crawl, and I think 10.2 was the compromise that let them get anything out the door. And so, it did get out the door.
It did get out the door. I can only imagine what this game meant to people who loved 10 when it was released, at the time.
I can tell you what it meant to me.
Booting it up, and then you got that concert scene, and then all the characters have been redesigned and rewritten, and they have different personalities, and the world that doesn't look the same, but it's also kind of the same.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I had loved 10. I was a little bit less put back by the kind of opening cutscene because I had played Kingdom Hearts, and that game also opens with an opening music video weirdness. So I had been desensitized to that being an odd thing. But also, the gameplay really harkened back to some of the games I had liked before, like Final Fantasy V. So the gameplay, I actually enjoy most of it in this game, as janky as it is. I enjoy the conceit. I enjoy the idea. Actually playing it is not as fun. Unfortunately, the combat is poorly designed. It's got a good idea, but it is poorly executed. But the story, I barely understood what was going on because this game's story's hot garbage that makes barely any sense. And so that was a real disappointment.
There's a story in this game? I feel like it's completely not a deal. It's not present. It's
weird.
Lost in action. It's like AWOL.
Yeah. So let's try to get our way through what we do know.
Okay, so you start the game off, and it has this bubbly J-pop concert scene where the person that you believe is Yuna, but her face is real weird, so it's not really Yuna. is singing a concert in a short skirt, sashaying with background dancers. And this kind of highlights the first major problem I have with the game, at least in terms of, its canon. It's only been like 2 years, and everyone in Spira has rebuilt the cities. They've
figured out
embraced
Machina.
machines. Everyone knows how to use a machine, even the old people. And they've bought into this new career of spear hunting.
Sphere hunting.
There's no culture clash. There's no, down period where they're trying to figure things out. And oddly enough, it deprives me, as the person who liked Final Fantasy X, of something that I was really interested in seeing, which was the actual rebuilding process of rebuilding Spira.
Yeah, they mostly hit fast forward on that, and it is just such a shock.
2
when
years
you go
is
from...
not enough time also to justify where we are at in terms of the canon and in terms of the state of Spira in 10-2.
So, at the end of 10, the last cutscene at the end of 10 is Yuna speaking in front of a crowd in a stadium, basically saying we are going to rebuild and move on, keeping in our hearts the people that we lost, but we will carry on. And the first scene of 10 is a J-pop concert in ostensibly the same place, where she is dancing on top of a mechanical drummer who's got a laser platform coming out of his head, and then she has two backup dancers appear out of the ether to do sick hand
background dancing Backstreet Boys looking.
Just a lot of hands.
And then there's a weird guy who's got this Prince looking guitar.
Yep.
It's just such a mind fuck to watch that first hour, and it's like, wait a minute, it's only been 2 years since this giant space whale was destroying the continent? It's been 2 years?
It's less jarring than the beginning of 10 to the end of 10. Like the beginning of 10 where you're in Xanarkand and it's this techno crazy city. That is less of a culture shock than what Spira has become in 2 years.
But 10 earns the right to have that culture shock. 10-2 is a manufactured nightmare.
It's 1,000 years difference, is what they say. Ugh, it's so weird. And then you get introduced immediately to YRP, Yuna, Riku, Paine. They are a team.
Goddamn fucking shit. Fucking what did they do to Riku? What did they do?
She likes bathing suits?
And
I guess.
Showing off her whale tail and wearing a skirt that the camera very prominently will tilt ever so slightly to the ground so as that you can see up her skirt. Oh, man. I hate... This game was designed in ways that are... It's just gross. It is disgusting.
Okay,
And-
so can we just get as many of these things out of the way up front? Because it's not going to get better. There will be other gross moments. But... And you know what? If there's something especially egregious, I want us to diverge because I feel like calling out this game's grossness is totally part of what this is. But let me just list a couple. There's
Camera
Riku.
angles pan in the most vile way possible so as that parts of the female figure are prominently shown. When Yuna transforms, it will always show you her naked ass on the screen for like a second.
So every character transforms in a
transforms in a
Sailor
different
Moon
part of their
style.
body. I kind of like the idea of that. Oh, it's like, they wanted to make a magical girl game, but used the Final Fantasy X canon to do that. Like, fine, whatever. But it's more or less the fact that, like, with Final Fantasy X-2, it really does spend time hovering the camera and having establishing shots for scenes on parts of their female cast members' body parts. Like the establishing shot to there's a new villain we need to fight starts on all three of the girls lined up on their butts, and then it pans up
Yep.
to their faces.
Every shot of LeBlanc is like shot down at her crotch.
And
It's
then
like shot from her
moves
crotch
and then
up.
pauses on her chest and then moves to her face.
Yeah.
And then LeBlanc's character design, some of the character designs are just the worst. LeBlanc being one of the most egregious examples of
I mean, not
whatever
just...
you would say.
So if you wanted to say that the outfits are outlandish, and they certainly are, or that they are especially exploitative of the female form, sure. But just from a practical perspective, LeBlanc's...
What is she wearing? She's like fighting people and getting shot at, and she just feels like, oh, I'm a magical space wizard. I'm just going to show my cleavage. And somehow it's all going to stay together while I'm running and flying and moving. It's
this asymmetrical outfit that's super crazy and held together by, like, mesh in weird spots and bubblegum in other spots and double-sided tape everywhere.
Yeah, and it's not just that, but it's the fact that it's impossible clothing, and they clearly only designed it so as that they could get a carnal reaction from the audience. That's the only purpose to it, because we don't learn why she dresses this way. Or
that's just her outfit. That's her look.
That's just her outfit, and she's a sphere hunter, and she doesn't dress sphere change at any point.
No, because only the Gullwings have that technology.
Oh, God damn it.
So, on top of that, this is, I would say, this and Dirge of Cerberus are peak Tetsuya Nomura. This is when we knew what he was about. Because both of these games...
Are there any outfits with zippers on them coming out?
Which one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes, every character has zippers.
Okay. I'll look for that.
Zippers and mesh all over the place. Have you met Nuge yet?
Yeah, you're right. I just met Nuge.
He's possibly the most Tetsuya Nomura character. He's close. There's a character in Dirge of Cerberus who has... there's two characters. One who has a fake arm. She's missing an eye, so her one eye is always closed. She's got a mechanical arm, but she's a doctor. But she's wearing her lab coat over her shoulders, and she's wearing a crop top that shows her midriff.
She's like a female version of Oron.
She's wearing a crop top that shows her midriff and her belly button, and she's wearing a short skirt that's slanted, but the slanted skirt also has like a section that's missing, like a window in the middle of the short skirt that's held together with like mesh or some shit, and she's wearing heels. That might be it. Or it could be there's a guy in Dirge of Cerberus who has a straitjacket on and who has mechanical arms that hold guns.
Oh, that's actually a common anime villain design. So I would probably vote for the girl. That specific anime villain with like the robot arms that are holding guns and he's wearing a straitjacket. That's a trope in anime.
Great.
Like you will see that at least once a year.
Great, but Final Fantasy X-2 is a close.
X-2.
It's as close as a runner-up
in terms of like the design and. It's just
So do you have questions about the Garmic Grid or the Sphere Grid or any of this?
Well, of course I do, but it's like
do you want me to try and explain them?
There's so much to unpack. So Garmic Grids are the things that you unlock in order to have dress spheres put into your like hot menu that you can just swap to.
Yes.
But you can't just swap to any of them at any time. It's where you start, and then you can do the dress spheres that are next to it, right?
Yeah, the adjacent ones, yeah. It's like the sphere grid. You go to adjacent spheres.
Yeah, but the problem is that, like, you go to adjacent spheres, but I already have the dresses. I already have them. They're right there. Why can I only jump to the adjacent ones? Why can't I just jump to any of my dresses?
Because that's how the system works. Because then you get to see multiple transition animations.
I finally did just turn off the animations. I can't. It's just such a long amount of time that you lose if you don't turn off the animations to the dress sphere changing.
I left it on for a while just because I wanted to see the animations for each of them, because I would say that more care and attention is put into the animations than
any other part of
anything else. Anything else in the game, so I felt like I was not getting my money's worth if I didn't see them transform into weird shit.
But it's so long, and it just amounts to such a ridiculous amount of wasted time.
Yeah, it's not great.
And it's not only that, but it's the fact that you have to level up each dress individually that drives me up the wall. That I have to put in, like, there will be one character with the songstress dress sphere, and she's got all of these extra moves, but if she's out and I still want to have the darkness dance. Well, that's the starting move, so I kind of just hurt my argument. But if I wanted an attack and I sphere change another character, they got jack shit.
Yes.
They've been using the that specific dress sphere as well. And so the combat system almost requires a ridiculous amount of grinding and just wasted time leveling up these dresses, getting all of the abilities, and not just once, but you have to do it for all 3 characters.
And it's not almost. That is the way you do it. There are no, at least to my understanding, there is no situation like the Cactuar Island in Final Fantasy VIII. There is no equivalent
efficient way of grinding.
Yeah, but even that's grinding, but at least it's efficient grinding. This game, you just have to grind. Like, you have to fight a bunch of battles. And the battles in this game, they are either incredibly easy and trivial or insane.
And the difficulty spikes occur without warning and without any agency on the part of the player. Like, the star warning system in terms of the difficulty of each level is bullshit. That thing is never accurate.
It's never even close to accurate. It doesn't seem to have any rhyme or reason for what it is. And on top of that, you've just got so many like, this game's combat system feels like a mod. It feels like a ROM hack for a lot of reasons. First thing that jumped out to me was that the items in this game are given out haphazardly like candy in a way that they never are in other Final Fantasy games. In other Final Fantasy games, they feel like you're getting this many of a given item because this is how many you need. And you'll be in like a reasonable ballpark unless you grind, or unless, you're getting into the point in the game where a certain healing item is now useless. Like potions, you'll end up with 99 of them in most games just because at a certain point you've outgrown them. But in 10-2, they're just like giving you random numbers. They're just throwing like, here's 15 high potions.
Here's 4 ethers. And another thing, and this kind of reminded me of what you were talking about one of the reasons why you always struggled with certain styles of Western RPGs, is Final Fantasy X-2 is very much guilty of using the infinite feedback loop, or the positive feedback loop, where every single mission gives you a dress sphere, every single mission gives you a garment grid, and you get so much shit you have no idea what to do with it. Or it starts to diminish, like, the reward system in the game, or what you've leveled up already. It's like, oh, well, I've been leveling up the thief garment grid for this character, and now I have something that's 10 times better. Fuck me, I gotta start all over again.
Yeah, and you never know how to plan it out, unless you've read a guide or something. But, like, some of the other things that make this game feel really super broken, every character has to actually perform their animation, their attack animation, and they can be interrupted during that time. So if you've got a character who's got an exceedingly long attack animation and your enemy just happens to hit you, you don't, like, get that time back, because this is an active time battle system. Like, every second that you're not doing something, you're supposed to be charging up for the next time you do something. But if you get interrupted while performing an animation, that time is just robbed from you.
Another thing that kind of drove me insane was I would queue up a series of commands, and I did have the game on wait, but there's still like moments where it's on action or whatever it is. I would queue up commands that required MP, and I would have like 3 of my characters use attacks that used MP. The first one got it, but the other 2 were already queued up their magic, and so I lost that MP even though they never attacked. Or I would just lose resources that I didn't need to use because the animation or the way that you queue up your attacks, just the system's not ready for you to be done with in a certain period of time. And the reason why I really find the combat in Final Fantasy X-2 egregious, I don't like it nearly as much as you, is Final Fantasy X already had a great combat system.
Yeah.
It had one of the best. It had a great compromise between like real-time combat. Well, it was still turn-based, but it was like a very strict turn-based system. You had a seamless like swap in and swap out system. You could use your turns to like swap your items on the fly in combat. It's such a great combat system in 10, and for them to just say, fuck it, we're going back to the ATB system, essentially.
But
and
not
then
even
grafting on the ATB system this, like... The thing that I really am so confused by is your characters have levels.
Yes.
So you level up your characters, but that doesn't fucking mean anything.
Not really.
Not
you have
really.
more hit points. You have more hit points.
Great. But the thing you really need to level up are your items and your dress spheres or your garment grids.
Yeah, the equipment that you add, like your accessories, those are way more important than your levels. If you don't get access to some of the skills that you want from your different dress spheres, your characters just can't do very much. And going back to this game feeling like a ROM hack, some of the dress spheres that you get early on, if you just are smart about how you learn skills, you can have like Aga level magic, like high late game, end of game stuff. By the end of chapter 1, or like midway through chapter 1, the sort of stuff that you had to work and you got at like the end of 10, you can have almost immediately in 10-2, and the game has to handle that. And so it scales in such a way that your character, even though you've got this high level, high end magic, it feels like you've got like a slightly more powerful fire spell instead of having this world-ending spell. And it's because they balanced everything in such a way that your early dress spheres, if you grind them out, they still need to be balanced against what the normal enemies are. It's a really weird... It's kind of feels like Final Fantasy VIII scaling, where in 8... you know, your spells are kind of related to whatever your magic stat is. So even though you can get Firaga spells in the first like hour or two of Final Fantasy VIII, they're not actually that powerful. 10-2 feels that way as well, except it's set in this world where all these things had meaning before, and now you're just like decoupling that meaning from the actual gameplay.
And Final Fantasy X-2's combat system is a case of Square or the designers wanting to have their cake and eat it. They want to be real time, but they still want to have some semblance of a turn-based system. And the end result is either go all the way with, you know, live action or you know, just real-time action, or turn-based. Don't do any of these like fucked up compromises because they're fucking dog shit. Like, the agency the player has on their characters isn't that great. I mean, the characters move into different positions, and this impacts how much damage they take or they give, and you got no control over where they move or how they move.
No. Sometimes they just take bad paths to enemies. Like they will...
They'll
I've
be
had
in
times
the middle of 3 enemies, and it's just Riku's there getting hounded, and it's like, I didn't fucking want her to be there in the first place.
Yeah, there were a couple of times where an enemy did a move that just missed one of my characters because of where their position was, and in my head I'm just like, well then fucking why don't you let me move them to a place where they don't all get hit by these moves? But no, the game's like, oh yeah, randomly one of your characters is going to be safe from this. Why not? Sure. Or another thing that might happen is like you've killed one of your enemies, and instead of like... Sometimes when you kill the final enemy in a battle, your two characters or your other characters who have queued up moves will just attack air instead of the battle just ending.
Yeah, like that. This is something they solved after Final Fantasy 1, to where, like, this franchise already has solved the problem of queuing up attacks and them whiffing because the enemy is dead.
Not in 10-2.
10-2 had brought back one of the worst parts of, like, the very first, like, the origins of Final Fantasy.
Never have I ever seen a role-playing game that's supposed to be high budget where characters swing and miss at air at the end of a battle because the game can't handle them not attacking. I've never seen that before. It's crazy.
It's insane.
It's bananas.
It's just... And the UI is dog shit. It's an hideous, ugly-looking game, like the menu system that is there displayed for you to queue up your attacks is dog shit. There's no tutorial. You have to go talk to this mummy boy on your ship and just watch a PowerPoint presentation on how to do the combat system.
And you can't quit them when you start them. It's just, wow, the combat in this game. But to be fair, let me say some nice things about it. Let me say a few nice things.
Sure, I also have some nice things I want to say.
Let me say some nice things. When you play it and it actually works out and you have some of the abilities that you want and you've assembled a garment grid that you like with a character and you've basically given definition to these definitionless characters, that can be fun. When you're swapping between different character classes and you're actually dynamically using them. And some of the character classes are very interesting. I think that they maintain some of their spirit from earlier Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
Now, some of the problem is that there is a lot of redundancy and overlap in skills, and at a certain point, some of the character classes are just better versions of other ones instead of having their own unique spirit. Like, in the HD version, there's this class called the Festivalist.
Yep.
Where your character dresses up in some sort of Japanese traditional festival garb, like Yuna wears a yukata, and they just get Yuna and Riku get elemental spells that are several times more powerful than what black mages get if you want to level them up, which means that you just don't. I did not use the black mage dress sphere.
I did very briefly because I needed ice. This is another thing. You have to go back and select the attacks and moves that you want to level up. And of course, the ones the game has queued up by default, those usually aren't the attacks that you want. It's like, this is a problem that like Final Fantasy IX fixed from Final Fantasy VIII.
Mm-hmm.
And it's back. They couldn't learn from the past.
You have to level up so much to get the good abilities. And like, there's also just real problems with how they designed magic classes versus physical classes, because magic classes don't have an attack.
Yeah,
like,
and so you have to learn the open attack. That's why, like, the songstress dress sphere I use for boss battles, because the darkness dance is a legitimately good thing to use for certain bosses. But, like, there were times where I wanted to have the songstress attack, but she couldn't fucking attack.
She can't. She never will.
And it's
like
what?
Black Mage can't attack. And it wouldn't matter so much if the frickin' AP system in this game didn't give you AP for, like, doing moves. In 10.2, I believe just, like, doing actions gives you AP, which means that if you have a slow class, you are actually losing out on experience gain. And the Black Mage, because you don't have an attack, like a basic thing that costs no MP, that means that you have to burn MP every time you want to do anything. It's just it makes it such an inefficient class.
Yeah, and like the game also doesn't do the best job of. You remember how there was like a rock paper scissors system to both the elemental magic system and the physical attack system in 10.
Yes,
there's really not that definite of a sense of that kind of a system in 10.2. So. No, physical attacks oftentimes are way better than magic in Final Fantasy X-2.
And the different enemy, so almost all of the different enemy classes and enemy types from 10 are repurposed in 10.2.
And this fucked me up too, but keep going.
Yes. However, many of the repurposed enemy types, they don't have the same mechanics that they had in 10. Like,
this
there
is
are
what
flans.
I was going to talk about.
Yeah. The flans in 10. They were magical enemies. They used magic. They took damage from, like, whatever their opposite element was, would deal critical damage to them. And if you tried to attack them with physical attacks, it would do almost nothing. In 10.2, just punch them. Punch them to death. They have no health. They have very low physical defense relative to where they were before. Almost every enemy type in 10.2 is vulnerable to just punching them to death. In a way that 10 really required you to shuffle between characters, 10.2 does not require you to even shuffle off of your main jobs.
No, and
it's weird.
it's a weird system because there are characters that they would pop up on my screen. Like chapter 1, I saw a behemoth and I was like, oh fuck, it's a behemoth. And then I hit him like 5 turns and he died.
Yeah, and I guess that's to try and make it a continuation of 10, like, oh, these characters are still really powerful. But
then they repurpose old character designs from 10 into 10.2, and they like change like the shading or the color just a tiny bit. But the problem that I have with that is that the elemental system in 10.2 is not exactly the same thing as 10. So you can't use the logic that you had from 10 and apply it to 10.2. Because when I saw like blue and red elementals, I was thinking, oh, fuck, I got to use ice on the reds. I got to use fire on the blues.
No, you don't. No, it's thunder on the blues. It's fire on the whites. Ice on the reds. It's water on the yellows, and it's yellow on the thunder on the blues. See, you still haven't learned what the Final Fantasy X elemental system is. Now, I'm going to let me give you a little bit of credit. The enemies tend to have non-obvious elemental weaknesses, except for the Flans and the elementals, which have the exact same fucking ones from 10.
Yes.
But like there used
Everyone
to be some.
Everyone else, the game will say, "Go back to the Black Mage and use scan." It's like I don't want to waste a fucking turn.
Why would I scan anything when I can punch it to death?
Yeah, and that's the problem. It's kind of a reminder of the biggest problem that I had with on our Jade Empire podcast is when you have an option in the game that basically solves every problem, you don't follow the line of logic that the game wants you to follow, which is scan, then use and apply magic that is a weakness to that thing. When the jack of all trade attack is physically attacking it, I'm just going to do that because I don't want to waste a turn on following the game's line of logic that I'm supposed to follow.
Yeah, and this game, because of its diversity of classes and how esoteric, like how specific some of the moves that each class has, like how those can be, it makes it so that you can apply almost any solution to these problems. Like, these character classes are pretty different, but ultimately they tend to just boil down to, can I deal damage to this thing fast enough? And some of the support classes, by extension, just aren't worth it. Like the Dancer.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Like the Dancer, yes, it applies debuffs, and it applies them to all of your enemies. That's pretty good. But the problem is, none of the enemies you want to kill are vulnerable to any of the status effects.
Oh yeah, I tried doing Darkness Dance on a boss that I was having a hard time with. Oh, immune? Well, this fucking class is dead forever.
Yep, and good luck if you want to learn any of the other dances, because they will probably be immune to those too. And I believe there are some dances that are positive on your team, but what if you were just a class that could attack also?
Yeah, but also, like, then there's, like, the item equipping system, where the equipment in... I'll actually say something positive. The equipment system in 10.2 is far more straightforward, but then the equipment system also instills positive debuffs to your characters, and, man, that's way easier than having to perform them in the game. And yeah.
And on top of that, you've only got 2 slots for accessories. 2, and then you can kind of say that the garment grid is like an accessory, because many of them have passive bonuses for using them.
Sure.
But the accessories, the specific accessories, like some of them you really need to equip if you want your characters to play the way you want them to. But then there are other accessories that are like gigantic stat buffs. For example, by the end of the game, I had some accessories that...
I had one in the beginning of the game that was 40% HP. That's a pretty big deal in the very beginning of the game.
It's a pretty big deal for the whole game. By the end of the game, I still had characters with like plus 60% or 40% buffs. But there's some... Like, I had an accessory that I think let me use samurai moves regardless of what dress sphere I had equipped. And I was like, oh, I should probably make someone a really strong samurai. But the problem was, that would mean that one of my 2 accessory slots is taken up by this accessory to grant me access to these handful of moves. Instead of, just equipping something that buffed my stats a whole bunch, and then just make sure you have access to the samurai dress sphere when you want it. So there's a whole bunch of like really unique accessories that you can't use because the raw stat boosts are just better.
Yeah. And like I said, who fucking cares about the fact that you're leveling up your character when using those items and buffs is way better and easier to use than actually leveling out your character? Like, the actual character leveling system feels so diminished, it's like a non-starter in the game.
Yeah, and the only dress sphere that I think you really need to use is the White Mage, because that one keeps you from dying.
Yeah.
That one keeps you from dying, and that's the only one that keeps you from dying. Other than having one character who has maxed out the White Mage, I don't think you could kill your enemies with whatever you want. You'll eventually get a dress sphere that is broken, and I'll tell you which one it is when you get to it. But until then,
that's kind of the one positive I have about the game, is that it's basically like, we got all this shit. You would use whatever you want. Use whatever you want. Customize the characters to your preferences. We got all of the options. You like buffs and debuffs? We got that shit over here. This dress sphere here. We got this. We got that. But here's the problem I have with that. There are
you like butts and debutts?
There are certain times. Is this true? Like, the dress spheres kind of differ between each character?
Yes. The festival, like, you have a dress sphere that does that.
So bad. Like, I thought, I'm going to equip everyone with the Festivalist because it's really great on Yuna. It's really great on Riku. Oh, wait, Paine's just fucking doing this stupid shit that it's completely pointless. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, and there's only a few dress spheres that have those sort of differences, but
why would you do that for those few dress spheres when every other dress sphere is the same? It's like a character class.
Why are so many dress spheres, like, why is there such a difference between how much AP you need to master each dress sphere? Why are some of them trivial to master and
I was looking
some of them
at
impossible?
Like the dancer one or the songstress, it's like, you need 80 AP for the next attack. It's like, fucking great. I'm never going to use this.
Yep, that's impossible. Versus, like, the warrior dress sphere where it's like 10 AP for power break. Oh, you mean this incredibly useful ability? I can have it in, like, 2 fights?
Yeah.
Sure.
So they really didn't balance it, and the biggest problem there is that this is part of the reason why you and I feel the same, where physical attacks are way better. Like, the physical classes are way better because they require less time, they require less effort to get the maximum gain out of them. Like,
they have no restrictions.
Yeah.
They don't drain your MP. On top of that, they don't have the problem where you're, like, channeling a move and then you're basically giving up time in order to channel your move. They're just more efficient in terms of time in the battle.
So this is something that I really hated about the combat is I would queue up Firaga. Like, I'll queue up one of my attacks. I'll queue up some magic here. And it's like, great, I need this now. Oh, wait, I need to charge up for, like, 30 seconds.
And just pray you don't get hit while you're charging.
Don't get hit. Because then it'll interrupt the animation and I don't get shit.
Yep. And there's just so many
Why
moments.
would you do that? Like, there were times where it's like, oh, this fucking, I looked it up in the guide. Oh, this guy's weak to fire. I'm going to have everyone queue up, fuck, he did an area of effect spell.
And because my characters are all classes that have fire, I'm going to need to transition them into white mages, and that will take some time. And then when they become white mages, I'll then have to queue up the healing spells, and that'll take time. And then by the time they get to act, all of them are dead.
And there's animation lag, and I have no control over that.
Nope. Or how's about when you try to actually use the game's combo system? Because there's a combo system in this game.
So I was actually, like, wondering, is like, fucking, what the fuck is this combo system? Is it, like, attacks in a row?
Yes. Yeah. If you just keep hitting a character, an enemy one after another, there will be a damage multiplier for the later attacks. So the character class that actually makes use of the combo system is the gunner, because the gunner has trigger happy, which you in our stream were not able to figure out. I don't know if you figured it out since then.
I finally figured it out. You hit it D. You hit D while it's happening. But that's the only character who you have to mash a button while you're doing something.
Yeah, but the trigger-happy ability will rack up really long chains because you're just shooting over and over and over again. And so if you queue up any moves for other characters that will happen during trigger-happy, they will get huge damage boosts because your chain will be like 50 by the time they do something. And so that is the one opportunity where I'm like, okay, the charge thing makes sense. Like, you're queuing up your charge move, and then you hit trigger happy, and then the charge move will just happen whenever it happens. And so you know that it will combo because trigger happy takes X amount of time.
It's another mechanic that rewards the physical classes and completely evaporates my desire to use any of the magic classes, because the magic classes require more time, and then syncing them up into the combo system is virtually impossible.
That's the good thing about trigger happy, is that it's got such a long window.
That's one class!
Yeah, it's one class. But, like, and it's one ability.
So that means all the other 6 classes are junk.
No, it means that all the other classes can't reliably use the combo system ever.
Yeah, exactly.
The gunner is the only one. Like, there were so many times where I tried intentionally to get my characters to combo, and they would take a bad path to the enemy, or they'd get touched by a strong breeze, and then they couldn't do their move, or the thing that they were going to combo, like, died, and so instead they stop, and then they reset their animation, and then they figure out who they need to attack, and it wastes a bunch of time. It feels like a ROM hack, and it's bad. Now, we should probably discuss the story instead of just only dumping on this combat system, because it's very bad.
Intro concert is a bad thing. It's so goddamn bad. Like, your first impressions of this game are, fuck. You're just hanging out. It's like, oh, great, I'm going to see all the characters that I loved before. Like, this game is nefarious and deceptive. You think that you're going to play Final Fantasy X-2. It was like, great, I get to see Waka, Lulu. I'm going to see all my old characters. You're going to see 2 characters. Because one of them's brand new. And it's like this Beyonce music video, but it's like an anime music video, just J-poppy, LSD-inspired nightmare fuel. And it just drops you immediately into the fray. Like, here's this redesigned Riku, here's this character called Paine that apparently everyone knows but you.
Yep.
Like, we're going to just name drop this character as if you know who they are, except you've never met them. Like,
and then you like deal with this fake Yuna, and you get introduced to LeBlanc's crew. Remember the rival Blitzball team from Final Fantasy X?
Yes.
What if they were main characters?
Yeah, what if they were main characters and you had to deal with them for 20% of the story?
More than that.
Oh, fuck!
More than that. Your percentage is low.
Oh, man. Okay, so here's the first problem I have with the story, is there's no story. For Chapter 1, there's this vague sense of Yuna thinks that she has this sphere that has a memory that shows Titus, and he's walking around, and she wants to investigate it. Except,
yes.
She proceeds to just not do anything about trying to find Titus, and instead is like working for this organization that's treasure hunters.
So the gull wings are sphere hunters.
Yeah.
They're trying to get spheres that will show bits of Spira's past and have fun.
So 2 years after Sin has wrecked shit up, there's this new industry, there's this new commodity that everyone wants to buy and sell, and it's spheres. It's parts of their past. And so,
which is a cool concept.
It's a cool concept, but it doesn't make sense because they've had 2 years to recover, and now here's this in-game economy system that just happens to exist. Everyone wants to be a sphere hunter. Everyone wants to get these spheres and sell them and make money.
Yeah, kinda. Like, there's some people who are just who are like history buffs, but yeah, there seems to be a bit of that. Just
and
get
so
in line.
When you're it's Luca. The game starts in Luca, right?
I guess what I want to know is, now that you keep saying it's been 2 years, what the hell was LeBlanc doing when Sin was attacking? Like, what was she up to? What do you think her life was?
Up to? It's like, at least like the guy who runs the youth league's like missing a couple arms and legs. It's like, oh fuck yeah, you've seen some shit.
LeBlanc, what were you up to?
What were you doing? Were you a guardian?
Were you just being eccentric someplace else? Like, what?
Yeah, and it's like all these characters have a sense of humor, and like, well, 2 years ago, you guys were fucking like dealing on the precipice of death and worrying about this giant space whale just coming out of nowhere and destroying your society and everything you know and love. And now we've
over it.
Now we've gotten over it and are just like superficial. Like everyone in the world of Sphera is just superficially just over the top. It's like, oh, you're Yuna, blah. It's like, but Yuna's popularity only factors into the story when it's convenient to the plot.
Yep. I just love when LeBlanc steals their garment grid. That's the impetus to start the game. Why does she steal it? We don't know. What was she going to do with it? No clue.
Why was she doing a concert as Yuna?
Yeah. How'd she get that concert? Why was she doing it? Don't know. Never explained.
And then also LeBlanc, it's never explained. How does LeBlanc turn into doppelganger Yuna? The dress spheres change your clothing. They don't change your face.
Unclear. How'd she do that? Don't know. Where do her goons come from? No clue.
Yeah. Why does she have like this, like, she basically has a syndicate working.
Yeah, she's got a syndicate.
Oh, it's called LeBlanc Syndicate?
Yeah, the LeBlanc Syndicate.
It's like, well, why? It's like, at least in the world of Sphera in Final Fantasy X, like the humans, like the people who were villains were the leaders. Everyone who was just the everyday people, they were just trying to make ends meet. And so somehow in a 2-year span, everyone learned to be shitty and
or a bunch of people did. Not everyone. There's just the spear hunters are kind of some of them seem shitty and superficial. But to be fair, those are the people the game introduces you to.
Yeah, those are the people. Those are the only people that you get introduced to.
Like you immediately after this fight, you go onto the Celsius, the giant flying hot rod that Riku's brother has.
And like everyone's making machina, everyone's making airships, everyone's making these machines, these really complicated machines, and they've learned
them.
They've learned how to use and design and maintain them.
So in the last game, the airship you had was the airship in the world.
It was the only one. You had to go to the bottom of the ocean to pull that shit out and get.
And in this one, you have a hot rod.
Everyone has an airship. Everyone has some cool shit.
Not necessarily everyone, but you have a hot rod that has like 6 people on it. Your airship has like 6 people. No one's taking it. No one cares. You've just got this hot rod airship that's driven by Riku's brother. And you're flying all over the world wrecking shit.
And like, the game doesn't do a great job of introducing you to any of these new characters. So one of the player characters is brand new. That's Paine, and she's real shitty. And they don't spend any time introducing her on the best possible footing, explaining who she is, what's her deal.
They just say she's mysterious. She showed up and joined the Gullwings.
It's like, Yuna's like, I don't really know much about her, but I consider her a friend. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Why?
I don't know. She seems cool. I like her haircut.
Cool. I like her haircut. Like, what? Why is everyone getting along? No, this doesn't make sense. And like, there's LeBlanc, so there's a new antagonist, and then there's like 2 other characters that are brand new in your ship, and it's like, oh, hey, I guess you guys are going to be a part of my party. Come on over. And so the game pays homage to the past, and then reintroduces a bunch of new shit, and then also introduces new shit that's just new and distinct to Final Fantasy X too. It's a real weird story. It's a real weird structure.
Like, I really enjoy Brother.
Oh yeah, whoever animated Brother had
a great time.
Fun time. They had the best job in Final Fantasy X too. The way that Brother animates is great. The way that he gesticulates is great. And the way that
his voices,
like his voice actor, clearly they're like, we want you to sound like an Eastern European, but we want you to take it to like 11. It's like, okay,
more.
I can do that. Okay, we need you to be more anime crazy. It's like, okay, I can do that. Yes, now we're good. It's like,
the best part is that the animations, just so few of them repeat. He has different ridiculous gesticulatory dances.
Every single time he says party, 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 it's like a different animation.
Yeah. And he says it a lot. So that's kind of great. The only thing, in the HD version, there's this weird Pokemon system where you can catch monsters and then have them fight for you. The one thing I wanted to try, because Brother is the like demo, you can capture Brother and then have him fight for you. I kind of wanted to make Brother one of my party members that I had at all times. But then I decided I never wanted to interact with the Pokemon system at all ever.
It's a bad system. I tried to do it. I tried to use it. I went through the tutorial. I put out my Pokemon ball. And it's like, oh, man. That's a dumb... Like...
How is Brother in Combat? Did you use him?
He's... You can equip dress spheres on them, but they don't have an animation. You just basically equip them as if it's equipment. So they basically, all the characters do the same thing, except you have a different starting HP and MP. Like, I don't know if you saw the tutorial. There are certain monsters, or that, like behemoths, that take all 3 of your slots. And so you have a massive starting MP HP, but you only have one character to do all these attacks, and the ATB meter feels the same.
Oh.
So why would you ever fucking do that?
So that is like that new Final Fantasy... what is that game? It's a new Final Fantasy game that... No, it's the one that is like all homage.
Theater Ribbon? Oh, no, Record Keeper.
No, not Record Keeper. What was the name of it? Because I remember because there were monster stacks.
Well, yeah, I know. Because I was looking into playing another mobile and portable Final Fantasy game.
Oh, what was the name of that game?
So, anyways,
Dimensions? No, not Dimensions. There was a new one that just came out, but you have 3 character slots, and then the characters, you can have up to 3 small characters, and if you have the small characters, they stack on top of each other to make big characters, or you can have big ones that take up multiple slots. Look, Final Fantasy X-2, another precursor to another bad Final Fantasy game.
It's just such a weird system. You shouldn't do it. It requires a lot of time because once you get your person, you have to train them because they don't want to be in combat. And so you have to teach brother manners and like you have to level them up. You remember the Chow Garden in Sonic the Hedgehog?
Yeah.
You have to do that in order to
Sounds great.
And then they tell you a story, which I haven't gotten to because I'm only on chapter 1. And so you get onto the Gullwing. That's what is it? The Gullwing? No, it's the Celsius.
The Celsius. The Gullwings are the team.
Gullwing is the team, and so you're introduced to this new cast of characters that are. Some are new, some are old, and they all behave completely different than what they behaved in 10. So Riku, I actually like Riku as a character. Like her bubbly, more confident personality, I feel is like appropriate. The way she is dressed is not appropriate, but like her being more confident, self-sure, like Riku spent a lot of Final Fantasy X doubting herself, doubting her abilities, and doubting her place in the party. And now that she feels so confident about herself, it's like that's a really good sense of empowerment from her.
And her just kind of having a good time.
Her wanting to have a good time. It's like, can't blame her.
It was World of Final Fantasy.
Okay. Yuna is less successful of a character transformation. So she goes from being the stoic but oftentimes altruistic character. She had her moments of doubt. She was a religiously minded character. And she just... Man, what they do with Yuna just fucking makes my head boil. Like, I just blew a gasket sometimes. It's like, oh, I'm dancing. And so, yeah, so Yuna is addicted to dancing, or just in random parts of the game, she starts dancing and she can't stop.
What if I told you that was story significant?
Is it shitty?
I mean, this whole game is shitty, so yes.
Okay, great. So it's like a neurosis, or it's like
no
related to repressed memories?
There'll be a way more Final Fantasy answer to that.
Fuck!
I should have just let you come to that realization, just like you did with the silence in Final Fantasy. That would be that's the most appropriate thing, though. In Final Fantasy X, it's like, why is everyone so silent when Titus says something stupid? Oh, that seems like a weird localization thing. Final Fantasy X, why is Yuna dancing all the time? That seems like it's such a weird pandery fan service thing. Except in 10, the revelation is that Yuna's going to die. In 10-2, the revelation's way worse.
And so, yeah, that's the other thing, is that they take these characters that fit this somber and kind of humbling story and adventure from 10, and now they've grafted them into this bubblegum pop. And for some of the characters like Riku, I think it works, but in the case of
Yeah,
Yuna,
because she was always like that.
but in the case of Yuna, I just want to fucking punch out my computer screen because like the lines of dialogue they hand her or have her read, or the
Are
way
disasterific.
the way that they make her fit this bubblegummy story, it's fucking infuriating.
It's disasterific.
And in a lot of ways, we talked about how the voice acting in Final Fantasy X is a product of its time. It is not perfect. Fine. It is fine.
Adequate.
It is adequate for what they were dealing with for the time. In a lot of ways, I feel like the voice acting in 10-2 is a massive step backwards. Like, the way that it has been translated, the way that they have the characters just convey this new world, convey this sugary, saccharine world is just the worst.
Everyone but Brother, I think, is worse in this game. And it's just because the tone is just so dissonant.
The tone is so dissonant from Final Fantasy X. It's like, remember, it's like everyone likes to talk about Blitzball and how Titus is a bitch and how Final Fantasy X is this bubbly kind of happy travelogue. Remember how like half of the game is this like really dour and dark pilgrimage to Yuna sacrificing her life and all of those themes of Titus coming to terms with his alcoholic and abusive father?
10-2 has none of
there's no
it has very
carrot
little
at the end of the stick.
Yes,
there's
there
an
isn't.
empty stick. And it's just dancing. Just keep dancing. Just keep dancing. It's like, I know that there's no brass ring. There's nothing for me to reach.
Yeah. And, so the first few missions after you get on the Celsius, shout-outs to Barkeep on the Celsius. He's pretty great.
I don't know, man. I think that the fucking Hypella voices it's like a
They're all the
version
same.
of Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like that accent is bad. It makes me feel bad. But yeah, going back to the voice acting, it's like the words that they say and the script. Holy shit, the script is terrible. Like you just made
it's disasterific.
It's disasterific. But like there are other times when they're trying to like say slang and speak jive that it's groan inducing. And they have like Yuna say these lines and it's like, I'm so happy now that we're on this journey. And it's like her voice actor's still kind of dealing with like coming to terms with herself and her skills as a voice actor. So it's like Yuna still has this kind of airy voice, but then they make her sing and do stupid shit and it's just discordant. It kind of made sense when like Yuna's voice actor was very dry and airy when she was like talking about coming to terms with death, but now that she's talking about, I really want to go to the concert right now. It's like, no, honey, this does not work at all.
This isn't. When she had the weight of the world on her shoulders, it made sense that she sounded that her voice quivered. It made sense when her voice quivered with the weight of the world on her shoulders. It does not make sense when she is standing on the top of an airship that looks like a hot rod, like screaming about going to see the world. It doesn't make sense that she's like, and sometimes I think like we should go out.
Oh my God. So something that like threw me for a loop until you explained it when we did the live stream is I had no fucking idea who she was talking to during her monologues. It's like, so it was a long time since you and I went to Luca. Last time we were here, we played Blitzball together. It's like, are you talking to Riku? Who are you talking about? And then you're like, no, she's talking about Titus. Remember, they can't use his name. It's like, oh God.
Yep. Just the dividends of making Titus a nameable character. It's amazing that a game series for basically 5 or 6 years had to pay the price of making a main character nameable, and they never did it again. They learned their lesson. But damn, what consequences that wrought. They can't say the main character. They even in 10, you could at least write his name because you had the text file of what they put in. In 10-2, they don't even know what you fucking named him in 10. So they can't say anything referring to him. All they can say is the star blitzball player of the Xanarkand Apes. That's all they can say.
That's all they could say. And when you are trying to have Yuna just express a level of exhaustion or disappointment with the fact that she's no longer with the person she loves and she can't say his fucking name.
It's like a problem.
She's watching this sphere. It's like, and Riku turns to her and it's like, do you think it's him? Yeah, I think it's him. And that's the extent of them talking about
the star player, the
Xanakin Apes. And
so the first mission.
Here's the problem I have with
say
this
your
mission.
thing.
Okay, is you
so
have
the first mission is Mount Gagazet.
You want to talk Mount Gagazet? It's Besaid.
No, you go to Mount Gagazet first. It shuttles you there.
Sure.
You have to.
Sorry.
You get
you know what? To be honest, the reason why I was confused is I was going to ask you what was the first level in the game because I forgot what it was. It's Mount Gagazet.
Because nothing happens on it. You go to Mount Gagazet, which it's kind of cool that they made a new environment. Like, hey, when the Faith died, Mount Gagazet, we could see the top of it. We hadn't been able to see how tall it was. And there's these cool ruins up there. That's kind of cool. But you know what we're going to do on them? We're going to race we're going to race Cobra Kai to the top of this place.
Platforming bits.
We're going to have you platform. The platforming's terrible. It's so bad.
The worst platforming in a game I have played in a good long time. It is
and the best part,
bad. It is so bad.
They can only use it in the new sections. They didn't retrofit it to any of the older parts of the game. So that means that all the Final Fantasy X environments, you can't jump unless it got redesigned in some way.
There are weird, invisible walls in the old environments that you visit. And it's like, hey, this is a perfectly functional path. I know where this leads to, but I can't go down that. No, here's a hedge that's on your way, and you can't go above that. Or, hey, I used to be able to swim in this part of the water, and now I can't.
Because Yuna can't swim.
She still can't swim.
Because Yuna can't swim. She's not wearing a dress anymore. She still can't swim. So you've got this platforming system.
It's so infuriating how this game just strings together a series of events and can't even be fucked to have a coherent narrative to justify this series of events. So we go from this prologue in Luca, then immediately jump into Mount Gagazet. Do we have a clear sense of who the villain is? Do we have a clear sense of why we're on this journey? Absolutely fucking no. No.
Yep.
And so it's just this adventure that is just convenient. It's plot by convenience. Why are we going here? Why are we going there? Well, because fucking
we need to get this sphere.
We need to get this sphere. What's the light at the end of the tunnel? Why am I getting these spheres? The game doesn't want to tell you any of that information.
No. Sometimes it's a dress sphere and you get a new character class. Sometimes it's a story sphere and the game can't be fucked to tell you what the story significance of them are. So you climb to the top of this mountain, and
there are these
LeBlanc is hanging on to, and you need to go get the sphere, and then you fight a giant crab.
Are fucking horrible. Holy shit! Are they the most anime villains in the game?
Yep.
They're just, I'm the fat guy, so I'm gonna laugh at you, deep laugh at you. And then I'm the tall guy, and I have the weird British accent that sounds like the fucking villain from Die Hard. Who's the villain from Die Hard?
I don't know, but he sounds like you remember in Street Fighter V the character Fang?
Yeah,
Fong?
he looks like Fong.
He is and has the same voice as Fong, basically. It's they are both just anime stereotypes.
Both anime stereotypes. It's like, at least, yes, Final Fantasy X was practically an anime, but it played its tropes a little low key or low. It toned it down.
LeBlanc is the upper class. I'm surprised she doesn't have that rich girl ha 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 laugh.
LeBlanc is like a Dragon Ball Z filler anime villain at best.
Yeah, she's cooler.
It's like, why is there this intense rivalry between LeBlanc and the Gullwings? Why? We don't know. It's just capitalism.
There is
capitalism.
And so you get the first sphere. I think that's the White Mage
this
sphere.
Giant enemy spider crab thing.
Yeah. And then you get a dress sphere. And this was when I told you that the Festivalist dress sphere for Yuna is broken in the beginning of the game, because she can randomly sometimes just do Firaga, and that just will auto-kill most of the bosses early on.
Yeah, and you can get the Vanguard grid if you listen to all the tutorials.
Don't do that.
I did.
It's not worth it. Okay.
And then it turns out the Vanguard grid is not as good as your first.
Yeah, it's not good.
Ah!
So then,
Hey, real quick,
you
when I try to equip a different grid, like they were all grayed out, do I have to level them up or level up my characters, or is it by chapter?
you need to put dress spheres in them.
Oh, I have to put the dress spheres in first before I can equip them?
Yeah, because otherwise they don't have a sphere.
Fuck!
So the cool thing about the garment grids is that you can, like, each of the grids for me kind of represented the character class that I wanted a character to be. So I put all of the attack dress spheres into one, I put all the support dress spheres into another, and that meant that Yuna was my support character and Paine was my attack character. That was kind of interesting, but not that much. The second place...
I like how the garment grids do kind of cater to the character classes you want to make the characters, and if you don't feel all that strong about it one way or the other, you can just immediately unequip them and re-equip them. Like, certainly you have to grind them again, but fucking it's actually a quaint idea. But so you're done with Mount Gagazet, you get this sphere, and you just talk to Shinra. Oh my god.
You went to Xanarkin next, I think, right?
Yeah. So, like, the whole thing, the reason why people want to have these spheres is because they play this, like, cheesy, grainy-ass CCTV footage of, like, people who lived in Xanarkin back in the day. Which is cool on paper, it's just, the game...
Well, sometimes it's footage of people who just lived in Spira.
Yeah.
They're just spheres. They were spheres in 10. Like, this isn't new technology. It's just... Up until then, I guess, up until this point, Yevon basically hoarded most of the information because they were an evil religion.
Yeah, and that's great. But like sometimes it's like, oh, this is the story one where we see the guy who's Titus's doppelganger. It's like, okay, how are we going to follow up on this information? How are we going to keep on this plot? And now we're doing something completely unrelated to this.
Yeah, and the thing that like bugged me the most about that being the impetus was that spheres they're historical documents. It'd be like finding a book that mentions his name. It could be from any time period. It could be from fucking anywhere. You can't even recognize where that person is. That's such a terrible thread to like dedicate your life to. But hey, maybe one of these spheres we find will have the other half of this video. Or something.
So yeah.
But whatever. You go to Xanarkin and it's a bummer too.
It's probably...
It's the biggest bummer.
It's the biggest fucking gut punch of chapter 1.
Let me put it to you this way. At least that's a bummer they wanted to inflict. Whereas the other bummers are due to the poor execution of the game. This was an intentional bummer.
I guess that's the important thing is like, so Xanarkin, which was this holy site, it meant a lot to the characters. It meant a lot to the Final Fantasy X story. It meant a lot to your adventure. Like, it culminated to this event, and just to see the ruins of Xanarkin was this breathtaking affair. And when you finally got there, you went through the trials of Xanarkin. You fought fucking goddamn Unalesca, that motherfucking piece of shit. You beat Unalesca. I had to get that out. I'm sorry. You beat Unalesca. You went through a lot to be here, and now it's this just dump tourist trap bullshit thing that is being commercialized to everyone.
Yeah, the sphere, like the dome of Xanarkin, held the memories of the 4 high summoners that have ever been that were able to defeat Sin. When you went in there, like, the spirits of the dead were around you. When you go there in 10.2, there's literally tour guides that are copy-pasted character models from earlier in 10, and they're, like, telling you about the amazing Xanarkin, and for a certain fee, they will take you through Xanarkin and give you the tour, the guided tour. It is the most depressing shit. Isaru is there, and he is in it. When you get into the dome... And you meet Sid,
God, that was so good.
It's fucking Sid who has commercialized all this shit for money in a completely out-of-character move that makes no fucking sense.
It would have made more sense if it was, like, Rin. Like, they already have this, like, venture capitalist Albed in the form of Rin, and they couldn't bother to use the one character that it made sense to use. Like, Sid was the guy who wanted to restore home and give a... He was the guy who was trying to rebuild home and provide leadership to the Albed during their darkest moments.
What about Awaka? Just make it Awaka. He would do that shit.
Yeah.
Awaka the 23rd's down. He'll sell stuff. But no. And then when you get to the place where Unalesca was...
Oh, that was... I like that scene. That's a great...
There's like two bummers. Yeah, I like Isaru, like, you know, doing his fake, like, ooh.
He does his fake tour guide voice.
That's pretty good. But then when they're like, oh, there was this secret staircase you didn't see before, and guess where it leads you to? A dungeon that they made in what feels like a level editor that culminates in a boss fight. All of the platforming sections that they staple onto existing levels feel like they were made in a bad level editor.
Yeah, and they're really quick. The only thing that's really the impediment there is not just the frustration with like holding down the X button and pressing forward, but like you play the Assassin's Creed franchise, right? Like a lot of people talk about how it's like, oh, all you need to do for this entire sequence in Assassin's Creed is hold the right trigger, press A, and move forward. But at least with that, it's super cinematic. You're seeing a lot of cool stuff, and the environments are great. Here, we're in a dungeon underground with a drab environment, and so it's not even visually striking for me to move the character from point A to point B.
The walls are really tight. The spots where you need to jump to are like maybe 1 or 2 stones, and it's very clear where you need to go. In Assassin's Creed, you need to actually know where the handholds are. You need to identify what your routes could be. In 10.2, it's not hard. There's those areas where you're doing platforming are the sparsest areas in the game, which is kind of good because in the areas where there is platforming and it's not one of those like deliberate platforming sections, it can be incredibly difficult to figure out where the hell you have to go because
was the worst one.
Sade.
But also the thing that I really just really fucking drove me insane is I don't know if it's just the fact that they tried to graft on this different flavor or genre of game in a game engine that cannot clearly this game and its game engine was not designed for platforming. Clearly, this studio does not know how to design a platformer. But the fucking camera in this game, holy shit. Like, it switches from isometric to, like, third person to isometric to tilted or Dutch angled. Like, there's times when it's a static camera and it's a different camera angle, so we've inverted your controls, and so you've accidentally moved into a different room or moved back into the previous screen. Loading screen. So the good thing is if you buy this, well, at least from me because of my PC, but at least the load times are a lot better than like if you tried to play this on the PS2.
I guess. Yeah, that's kind of a plus, but that means you play the game more, which is I feel like getting breaks between playing the game is a bonus.
Like the platforming bits, it's just like the camera's shitty, knowing where to go is shitty. It's very linear. And then it always culminates with a boss battle. You know there's going to be a boss battle at the end.
Yep.
And the one in Zanarkand is so fucked. Oh my god, the Guardian Beast or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
That battle is fucked.
And there's just no indication. Like the way that I beat it, I threw sandals at it till I got Firaga, and then I won.
I had the Darkness Dance because I was so sick and tired of that thing. And then it has, like, of course, an all-character hitting attack that just wipes you out. It's like, I decided to shoot my missiles. Now you're dead. I decided to target this one character. Now you're dead.
Yep.
And so, like, the bosses just range from being ridiculously easy, like that spider crab thing in Mount Gagazet, to just like being balls to the wall hard. And what's really crazy is that like Zanarkand doesn't have a lot of random encounters or fighting. It's mostly talking to Cid, talking to Isaru, trying to convince them to stop this nonsense, stop ruining this beautiful, wonderful landscape and like ruins by looting it.
Yep.
And then
they sell treasure.
Which actually is something, an anachronism I feel like I have against the game, is like, so Una talks about how she dislikes these people commoditizing the history of Spyro, and she's doing the exact same thing. She's doing the same fucking thing. Don't you try to tell me like, oh, she's like the Nathan Drake or Indiana Jones.
No. What I was going to say is her concern extends to the length of her arm. As long as it affects her, she's not cool. She says specifically, like, it was personal to me. I feel like it's disrespectful to like what I went through. But she's stealing spheres and using them to power her dress spheres so she can change into their powers. She's using the memories of fallen people to like dance and sing.
Yeah, and also she's like talking about how this is personal to her. Well, I'm sorry, Yuna, but like we can transport ourselves to parts of the world where we were never allowed to because of your fucking religion told us to stay in one place. So yeah, I want to see what the whole point of your fucking pilgrimage is. I have a right to this history just as much as you do.
Yeah, it's just the way that it's done that makes it feel so gross. And then
Besaid!
After that, Besaid, which is the best scene in the game, I think.
Oh,
you get to see
shit.
Waka. You see Lulu. Waka and Lulu are married. Lulu is pregnant, but they didn't bother to make a new character model.
Her look pregnant.
Yep.
I guess she's
no
a
new
little bit bigger on the stomach, but not too much. And they didn't even bother to change her fucking clothes. So she's gonna give birth to like her belt dress, like through her belt dress.
I don't understand how the hell Waka is supposed to be. They keep commenting about how he's pudgy, but his character model hasn't changed at all.
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
And most of what I'm going to say about Besaid is positive, but I will say, like, actually finding Waka and getting into the dungeon where they want you to go is such a fucking pain in the ass. Getting those codes for the fucking...
The ciphers.
Oh, that's... Like, you're right. When you go back to the older environments, and it's like, oh, here's an old environment where you can't traverse through the environment, and there's these invisible walls that are awkwardly placed in perfectly functional pathways, or places that you used to be able to navigate through. That's really awkward, but then when you go to the new ones where you can traverse through it, and it's using the same design and character texture or environment textures to show like, oh, you can go up this. Like, I was stuck for like a solid 10 minutes trying to find the key on the beach where you had to go towards the fucking entrance where the kids were hanging out, and then you could jump up it. Like, I was like, where's the third key? Where's the third number for this cipher? Where is it?
Yeah, and how's about the idea that like there was this section that was just off screen before, and it was like a secret door that just it was off screen in all of Final Fantasy X, but now you can go there and it's a door and you just enter it in, and it's one of those cookie cutter dungeons, and at the end of it is a fire dragon. But you know when Waka tells you like the sphere,
tells you his story,
yeah. When he tells you, oh, I wanted to see a sphere of my parents because I'm going to be a parent, and I wanted to know what my parents look like and how they raised me. Like that, and I hear that there's a sphere of them. That's awesome.
Doubt is great. Like he doubts himself. He's afraid about the future. And like one thing that I do like about the story is the fact that all the people in power and all the authority figures are young people. It's like you really do have this sense of a new generation is kicking out the old and taking the reins of determining the future of Spira. Like, Kimari is the leader of the Ronso. LeBlanc has her little syndicate. There's a new leader.
Waka's the elder of Besaid, basically.
Waka is basically the mayor of Besaid. There's a new leader of the Church of Yevon. There's this new leader of, like, the youth group. There are all these new characters, and there's a lot of new young characters from the past, and most of them are new,
Donna,
that are taking control and taking leadership positions. And so there really is this sense of out with the old, in with the new. We are in a new era. And Besaid is literally the only location, well, there's part of Kilika, I guess, that makes good on that message. Well, that there's this new generation. This new generation is going to direct this continent during its recovery period. And they, oddly enough, each of them has a different perspective and different opinion about how to guide everyone through this confusing period.
Yeah, and that leads us to Kilika, which Kilika highlights the dichotomy. The central struggle in the game is between the Youth League and New Yevon. The Youth League is basically a bunch of former Crusaders and other young people who say, hey, now that we don't have to live under Yevon's laws anymore, let's take the things that they hid from us and let's try to just come up with our own path.
Great. That's a wonderful perspective. I appreciate the game for doing that.
And then New Yevon is, hey, some of the stuff that Yevon did was terrible. Most of the stuff they did was terrible, but they still had some good teachings. Let's still keep these traditions.
Well, and then also their perspective is kind of like a reformed version of the old Yevon, which is the status quo provided us leadership. It provided us with the sure bet. The sure bet is to stick with what we know. It's like conservatism versus liberalism, basically, is kind of how
basically.
I see it. And
it's old versus young,
old
with
versus
the
young
young being the youth league.
Yeah.
New Yevon being
I
the
thought
old.
it was great, but then that's only 10% of the story.
Less than that.
That's only 5% of the story. So here's this interesting dichotomy between old and new, liberal versus conservative, whatever you want to see into it. And it's 5% of the story. The rest of the story is Yuna just aimlessly wandering through each environment trying to find spheres.
Yeah, so you remember how I was saying early on when I was playing 10-2, I might have to move 10-2 up on my list of Final Fantasy games that I like? It was because I had just played Zanarkand, Besaid, and Kilika, and had seen, oh wow, there's this interesting dichotomy between old and new, young conservative, conservative versus liberal. Oh, they're delving with some interesting stuff.
And you crashed.
And then I played the rest of the game. And realized that all these ideas are fucking abandoned. You meet Nuge, you meet Barrel Eye, and there's these different factions that are competing for Spira's future, and they have differing visions, but they both want to go to the same place. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, I forget. In Chapter 1, so what are you doing, Kilika, in Chapter 1?
Before the hotspot or after the hotspot? Or during
Either
the
one.
hotspot? Okay, before the hotspot, you just find out that Donna's and Bartello are in a committed relationship. They live together, but they both are in different factions, and she kicks him out for a little bit, but they're trying their best to make it work out. And you also find out that there's this lady who wants you to collect 13 monkeys, so fuck her! I'm not going to collect her goddamn monkeys.
Yep. It is cool to see Kilika undestroyed.
Undestroyed, and not only that, but it looks better than before it got destroyed in Final Fantasy X. It's great. So here's this great teeming village. You get to tour the sites. It's wow, here's New Yevon, here's the Youth League. All of this environment has changed for the better, and I think the game does make a very good case that, what you've done, what you accomplished in 10 has had some really great positive things for the environment.
And then for the hotspot, you need to fight your way to the temple, I think.
Oh, God.
And then get a sphere that New Yevon has been hiding.
Okay, is this the one that's broken in half, or is that Zanarkand? I forget. One's broken.
That's
in half.
Zanarkand.
Okay, yeah.
Zanarkand is the broken one.
Zanarkand's the shitty one, and it basically devolves into a series of mini games. You have to go through. I like what is it? Nuge's speech about the case that the Youth League pleads and why you should support them and not New Yevon. And it's look, this is our history now. This is our history. We have a right to this. And it's you know what? This guy, he's clearly probably going to have his own nefarious background. This makes sense. It's
a shame that Nuge looks the way he looks, because everything he says, he sounds like the voice actor is good. The things he's saying are interesting. It's a shame that Nuge looks the way he does with his weird 3 dreadlock hair, whatever that is.
I like the fact that he
robot
has
arm.
a robot arm and a robot leg, because it's some shit happened to the Crusaders in Mihan High Road.
Yeah, but how did he end up with multiple belts across his chest and then a fuzzy?
And he has dreadlocks, and no one else has dreadlocks. Why?
But 3 dreadlocks.
Yeah. So okay, fine. I'll concede that part
doesn't
really make sense, but everything he says is a breath of fresh air, because it's all of Final Fantasy X was beholden to the teachings of Yevon and just getting that shit rammed down your throat that they're evil, or this is what they say, this is why we don't do this, blah, blah, blah. And it's there's a diversity of opinions in 10.2 that was not present in 10. And yeah, you could say canonically 10 had a reason for that, but I like the fact that that is not the case in 10.
And Barrel Eye is interesting too.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Look, there's things you don't understand that we do, and you need to trust us a little bit. Come on.
I like the story conceit of that being Yuna really doesn't want to be in Bevel. It's guys, why are we here? I don't want to be here. It's why? I had someone try to arrange my marriage again
and kill me.
Yeah. It's oh, Jesus, Yuna, you really get screwed
downer.
Screwed over a bunch in terms of marriage and commitments.
Yep. So you get this. I think you get a sphere in the hotspot, and then that like kicks off chapter 2, where you decide whether you're going to give that sphere. So those are like the 3 hotspots. Those are the only 3 missions I think you have to do in chapter 1.
They're really short chapters, which highlights
they're really short.
The biggest problem I have with Final Fantasy X, and I think you would agree.
10-2.
Like 70 to 60% of this game is side quests.
They're side quests, but it's optional, but it's not even good optional. Like, some of the side quests are like, you go to a place and you talk to one person, it's like, mission complete.
It's like, what?
Like,
it's like you
in
just...
the Mihen High Road, I think the mission in chapter 1 is you need to catch a chocobo for Callie, who's like this little girl who you met in Final Fantasy X, and now she's a little bit older, and she wants to ride a chocobo. But all the chocobos have been chased off the high road because machines have replaced them, so people don't have to walk up the fucking high road ever again, which, thank you, Rin. But you need to catch her a chocobo so she can ride a chocobo, and that takes, like, it's a mini game where you trap this thing, and then you catch it, and then when you finally catch it, you fight, I think, a chocobo eater once, and then that's it, mission over. And then Callie, like, jumps on your ship if you want her to.
And it's insane. I don't know if I hate it or I dislike the fact that like 70% of this game is side quest content, because it oddly reminds me of the computer role-playing games of the old days, where basically the side quests told 90% of the story, and it's how you ground or you did your grinding, is you would do your fetch quests, or you would do all these quests that would get you that information and get you those levels. But it's such a weird thing to this extent to hide and obfuscate over 50% of the game's content in nonsense missions is insane. And it also shows how shallow and empty of a game this is. Because chapter 1 is like 2 hours.
Yeah. It's like 2 hours long, and even if you do all the side quests, because a lot of the different areas, you can go to every area, even the ones that don't say they have a hotspot or anything
I
to do.
attempted every single side quest, and I think I only had about 5 hours.
Yeah,
and that's because I'm bad at playing the game.
You can do some stuff in the Moonflow, and you meet Tobley, and he's on cocaine.
Yeah, he's on angel dust or something. You go to Luca,
flying around,
and there's a hilarious mission where you find out Yuna was in a chocobo suit, and you have to pass out the balloons, and that mission sure is fucking fun. Because when I think of figuring out the past, I think about, what was Yuna doing during the concert scene?
She was in a chocobo suit. No, a Moogle suit. She was in a Moogle suit, and then you also have the... you can go to the Calm Lands, and there's 2 competing tour agencies that want you to advertise for them. And that sucks.
Oh, God. And somehow they managed to make the Calm Lands even more of a waste of time than Final Fantasy X, because there are 2 different companies in the Calm Lands that have set up just different minigames. And they all suck. So unless you want to waste money on gambling on fucking wolves racing, or just mini games that aren't even that, like, if you tried to sell these mini games in Final Fantasy VII would be like, nah, bro, nah, son, nah.
I pass.
Like, there's this weird mission in the Mushroom Rock Road where you're following Ormi and Logos, and they drop a goddamn sphere, and it's like, oh, I got to collect all 9, and then I get to open this gate that probably has some cool shit in it. Great.
Yep.
And just
you get some decent dress spheres.
But
there's not much else going on.
I really like Jose Temple, where you meet fucking, what's his name? Gipple.
The machine faction's kind of cool. I like that he's
so cool. And Gipple is such a sleazebag, but he's a breath of fresh air in comparison to the other characters in the game that I kind of appreciated it. Like, he's a chauvinist. Absolutely, he's a chauvinist. Like, your first interactions with him are him making a pass on Yuna, failing, then him making a pass on Riku, then failing, and then him making a pass on Paine and failing. But he has a character. He has some form of personality, and
He's lighthearted.
he's lighthearted in an era that is lighthearted. The only problem
He fits
is
finally.
your interactions with Gipple sets you up for Bicanel Desert, which is the biggest pile of shit I have seen in a good long time.
So what is so you get to go to the mines, working in the coal mines. Yeah. What does that entail again?
That entails you going into the middle of the desert, using your controller or the arrow keys to go on top of X's that are prominently marked on the mini-map, and then Yuna digs them, and then you try to get all of the gold stars or X's, because those do something.
Those are the good ones.
Those are the good ones. No, they have different parts and pieces that the person that is in charge of the machine faction in Bicanel Desert is excited about. Apparently she's building like something, like maybe a robot. I don't know. They don't even tell you what she's building.
Oh, okay. I know what you're doing then. Okay.
Don't tell me.
I'm not going to tell you.
Don't tell me.
I know what you're doing though. Okay.
And so here's something. I'm going to open up this Steam chat that I did with Mento, a fellow moderator, that you were offline because it was like ass o'clock.
Fair.
And yeah.
I sleep.
Yeah, you sleep. I don't. It's like, oh my god, is there a reason why I should be digging for shit in Bicanel Desert? And then Mento says, it's kind of a math game. Okay, it's a math game, so it doesn't always gel well with other people, but it's kind of fun if you want to get some decent spheres. But I'll warn you, you have to basically put in hours before you get anything worth a fuck. And it's like, great, sounds like fun. Then there is a 5-minute pause. And then my next 2 messages, actually 3, are all in caps, so I will shout them. Oh, what the fuck is this giant monster in the desert? Oh, Jesus Christ, what the fuck? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And then Mento responds, not all caps, surprisingly. Hey, you meant Angra Mainyu. How you doing? Fuck! I'm dead.
So there's a boss that gets buried that you can dig up by accident?
Yeah.
Great.
And then Mento replies, hey, remember Ruby Weapon? It's kind of like that, but at least he never recovers health, so any damage you do on it sticks with him forever. Gino, should I do the mission in Bicanel Desert?
This one doesn't matter, but I mean, it's your call. It's like the worst version of Chocobo Hot Cold.
Yeah, that's the sense I got. But at least
they
have
way worse rewards.
But at least, you know, they actually put the X's on where you need to dig.
I guess. What a boon that is.
The good news is that you go to Macalania Forest, and that's probably the best side quest in the game so far.
Yeah. Seeing what happened to the Guado is pretty great. And seeing Awaka get fucking almost arrested is pretty great.
Get his. You can actually turn him in.
You can. I did not.
I accidentally turned him in, and then I felt so bad about it. I was like, wait, I kind of want Awaka. It's like he sells potions for a discount. Like, I kind of want that. But no, interacting with Trommel is probably one of the better, like, NPC interactions you have in the game. And it's like you find out the Guado are very much sorry for what Seymour ended up doing. And when you visit Mount Gagazet, there are fucking Ronso who are pissed and want to exact revenge on the Guado. And so the Guado are living in Macalania Forest, having been kicked out of Guado Salam, and the line of dialogue you get from Trauma where he's like, we don't ask for your forgiveness, we ask that you forget us. It's like, that was a very resonant line, and probably one of the best lines in Chapter 1.
Yep.
It's like they realize that they've exacted this pain, that
their make good is to die, and it's to die quietly.
Yeah. Like that was great. That scene was great.
And the different forest denizens, the people who play music in the forest, saying that without the temple, the forest is dying, which they never make clear why the hell the forest is dying. It looks fine to me.
Also, like, that's not really a mission, like, trying to find all 3 of them. It's like, I ended up doing it, but, like, you don't even learn anything after that, like why the forest is dying, how to stop the forest from dying, or it's like.
So that's the whole thing. Like that, they keep saying it. There are 5 chapters in this game, and there are so many story threads that in the first time I went to a place, I was like, oh, this is kind of an interesting starting point. I hope they do something good with this. And then they fucking don't.
Owaka's kind of nice, like watching him almost get arrested, but guess what? Fucking navigating Macalania Forest sucked in Final Fantasy X, and it still sucks. And all those crystal pathways make it even harder. And somehow the map got way worse because there are more paths and more different ways to go and get lost. So I got lost.
Yeah, you never double back.
I got lost in Macalania Forest, like, way more. Like, and then you're trying to chase after Owaka, and, like, finding him is a pain in the ass.
Now, in 10-2, you probably never doubled back through Macalania Temple in 10, but 10-2 just basically starts Macalania Temple with the state it is in at the end of 10. So if you never doubled back through it, you never saw it with found, like, some of the additional crystal pathways.
I'll say this, one good thing about 10-2, you don't have to catch any fucking butterflies. There's no butterfly catching minigame. That's pretty good.
Don't you catch butterflies to find the different... There are circles of butterflies, so you can find the different denizens of the forest. You don't have to catch them.
I don't remember.
That's how you find them. There's circles of butterflies, and you stand in them.
Oh, I feel like I just found the drummer and found the fucking harp guy and then found the singer.
I like the little, like, flute, the horn guy.
The horn mouse rabbit thing.
Yeah, I like that thing.
Oh, and before anyone asks, someone told me to do this because it's the only one you can miss. Yes, I did talk to Trommel 5 times, and I did get full throttle, but... God!
Did you use full throttle?
No, I didn't.
You should use full throttle.
But the only reason why I don't use it is, like, the idea of having to swap all of my dress spheres just to get this one dress sphere, and I can only use the one special dress sphere in combat.
The special dress spheres are broken. They are very broken. All of them are broken in different ways, but they're all broken because... So there are some different sphere grids that give you access, that have fewer slots, so you don't have to bounce around quite as much.
Unerring path garment grid from Trommel if you speak to him.
Yes.
And that's only 2.
That's only 2. So for Paine, you can just give her 2 and then immediately use the special dress sphere almost all the time. So the reason why it's broken is because the special dress sphere leaves you with one character who, like, your HP jumps to like 3,000 or something crazy when you use your special dress sphere. Like, your health is inordinately high. And they tend to be self-sufficient in a way that, like, your 3 separate characters aren't. Like, each of your characters has to be one character class, whereas the special dress sphere has, like, a white mage wing, and then, like, a wing that will use some sort of status effects, and then the regular body will just do physical attacks or something. And so you kind of get the perfect character balance, but the risk is all contained in one character. So if Paine gets killed when she's in full throttle, she dies, but everyone else just runs back in with whatever health they had when they left. Which means you get all of the offensive output of having 3 characters, but the risk of only having one character in combat. So it's completely broken. Like, the smart thing to do, the way I beat some bosses later on in the game, was to just have Paine, Riku, and Yuna just keep using their special dress spheres over and over and over again until the thing died, because it could only ever kill one of them at a time.
Awesome. It sounds like this is a balanced game with combat that the designers really thought out before they put it in a game.
Yep. Well, you should use full throttle at some point to see what Paine looks like in her maximum form.
You were stifling laughs as you said that.
What? Huh? No.
Oh, man. Like, the side quests, some of them... The thing that kind of drives me crazy is that, like, the game says, mission start, and then it's, like, a side quest. And then there are other side quests where it doesn't ever do that. Like, the PR campaign for one of the ad agencies, or trying to find that one guy a wife. It's like, those things are presented as missions as well, but they don't get the fucking mission start and then mission complete logo that way.
It's because the mission start and mission complete logos come from... So every by the end of chapter 5,
and how
if you've
weird
done all
is
the
it
missions,
that it does that in the first place? Like you're
super
doing
weird.
this adventure and it's like mission start. It's like, what is this? Is this an action game? Am I playing Halo or like chapter title cards? Like, is this an
feels low rent? Yeah, it's because by the end of chapter 5, if you've done all the side quests in a given area, it will say like story complete or location complete or chapter complete, which then basically says, oh, you did everything you need to do in this place. But you're fine. It's bad. So I think that's it for
Mount
chapter
Gagset
1.
in Kimari.
Oh yeah, you meet Kimari. He's the elder.
Ronso useless.
And he's trying to stop the young Ronso from
murdering
genociding.
Yeah. It's like, yes, we are angry about an act of genocide, so now we are going to commit one of our own.
Yeah, and he's just like, that's a bad idea. Don't do that.
I like how this game doesn't realize how dumb it is. Like,
or does it?
It doesn't realize how dumb it is.
It's not great. It's not a great game. It's not going to win our game of the year this year. I'm going to go out. I'm going to say that.
Did any of the Final Fantasy games get mentioned during your game of the year discussion?
9 got game of the year last year.
Okay, cool.
9 got game of the year last year, and 8 got, I think, best soundtrack the year before, and Vivi got best character last year. But like, they usually come up in spots, but like, this game's just not. It's not gonna do it.
Yeah, we're basically done. I have been warned that some of the worst of Final Fantasy X-2 is in Chapter 2. Like, I think Sparky, our old moderator, said, boy, I really want to hear you talk about the fucking LeBlanc Syndicate and what you do in Guado Salam.
It's bad.
It's a bad thing?
It's bad. You're not going to have a good time.
I like the Irish talking drummer guy.
Sure. You're going to have a bad time. Chapter 1 is the best.
You are super positive about this game. When I first talked with you, you're like, man, this game's kind of a mess, and its story is a non-starter, but it has some good. It has heart, and it has combat that's kind of interesting. That was like the first time. It's like, Final Fantasy X-2, whatever. It's innocent.
I kept playing it.
But you made it seem like it was like the worst thing to happen to you. It's only like a 25-hour game.
It's only like a 25-hour game, but it should be like a 5-hour game. There's so little. So you keep playing. You tell me when you feel like you understand what the story's about. I beat it. I barely get it. I beat it twice. I've played it multiple times. I don't know why anything is happening. I know why it's okay. Let me rephrase that. I know what people who are listening. Don't send me feedback like explaining to me what happens in this game.
We don't need an Excel
happens.
spreadsheet about like explaining.
Actually, no. If you're gonna send it in the format of an Excel spreadsheet, or make me a PDF file in LaTeX. If you could do one of those two things to explain what is happening in Final Fantasy X-2, I will listen to that. But otherwise, I know what's going on. I just don't know why anyone wrote it. It's the type of game where it doesn't need to exist. And that's a sad thing to think about.
And every attempt, other than maybe Besaid and Malkalania Forest, every attempt at trying to be somber and introspective is just the worst, like, groan-inducing shit I've seen in a video game.
Yeah. It's a shame. Because the game before it was excellent, and this one is not. So, with that,
next
I think
episode is going to be just Chapter 2.
Just Chapter 2?
Do you want to do Chapter 2 and 3?
I mean, there's not... 2 is, I think, 2 or 3. One of them is the longest chapter in the game. So, I think we could definitely do just 3 podcasts for this Hot Trash Fire. So, just do 2 and 3. Yeah. It won't take you that long.
Are there any side quests you do want me to do? Like,
you should get all as many dress spheres as you can. Just try to get.
You
them
ended up getting all but one.
No, not all but one. I ended up missing out on the alchemist, and there's one that's just in the HD version or the HD/international version that I think you get for the Pokemon battling.
Oh,
I didn't
really?
do that.
Oh, man. Do I have to do all of the Pokemon battling, or do I just need to do some of it?
Not all of it, but I didn't get it. There's also one that you can only get by getting all the other ones, and I didn't get that one. But you should just, try to get a lot of them. Like, you definitely want the Dark Knight Dress Sphere, and look up how to do that because it's very easy to miss. So yeah, next episode we will be talking about chapters 2 and 3. There will be less discussion of the combat system in all likelihood, but also more disappointment.
This is a bad game.
If you've gotten this far, it means you're a fan of this show. And I'd just like to say before we do our sign-offs and stuff, if you could share this little show we're doing, our download, our listenership has gone up recently, and I'd like to think it's because you listeners are such good evangelists for this show and this crazy nonsense we're putting together.
If you like Final Fantasy X-2, write us a letter. I want to know.
Please explain.
We're not trying to shit on this game. Like, we like Final Fantasy X and feel like it's a poor follow-up to Final Fantasy X-2. I know,
or
and
other way around.
I know and understand. If you really like Final Fantasy X-2, I have a hard time believing that you really, really like Final Fantasy X. These are two games that are appreciated in isolation and isolation alone. So I want to know, what part of Final Fantasy X-2 resonates with you the most. I want to know. Write your letters.
Yes. Please. And if you want to do so, go ahead at DeepListensPod or at ThatPinguino on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com, or deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. Thank you once again, ZombiePie, Chris, ZombiePie Redacted.
I wrote you a letter for your Persona podcast.
You did?
Yeah.
And I read it.
Yay!
We read it, and we have more feedback for the Persona podcast, and we're going to find out the secret of the New Jersey Nets. The Nets gold.
They drafted real well this year, so
they did. It was nice. It was good to see them make moves that made them less embarrassing, but not all the way.
That coming from a New York Knicks fan.
Yeah. So till next time, peace.